Hello and welcome to Farm Journal Live. I'm editor Clinton Griffiths coming to you from our newsroom here in northern Indiana as we take a look at what's happening around the agricultural markets, including our ag markets, our commodity markets, finding to get back to about even after a mixed morning of trade. USDA announcing a sale of 132,000 metric tons of new crop soybeans for delivery to China. That came the morning after White House advisor Peter Navarro appeared to say that the trade deal with China was over. That comment made during a news interview Monday night. Well, overnight markets began to sink before Navarro quickly spoke to the Wall Street Journal, clarifying, saying he was taken widely out of context, adding his comments, quote, had nothing at all to do with the Phase 1 trade deal, which continues in place, end quote. Navarro saying he was speaking about the lack of trust following a staunch back and forth regarding the origins of the coronavirus. At nearly 10:30 p.m. Eastern Monday night, President Trump weighing in on and tweeting that the China trade deal is fully intact. Hopefully, they will continue to live up to the terms of the agreement. Well, here to help us sort it all out, we've got Jim Wiesmeyer, our Pro-Farmer Washington policy analyst, also with Farm Journal. Jim, as we look at the back and forth last night, boy, it didn't take long for the president to jump in and try to add some clarity here.
Talk about a clarification. And also, Peter Navarro had to backtrack as well. And you saw the market reaction because the consensus was that the Phase 1 was ongoing. But you saw the market revolt on that. You had the Dow futures down almost 400 points. They're up 200 as we speak right now, actual Dow. And you saw energy prices plunge, and then they came back.
Yeah, so there is a lot as far as market expectations riding on this Phase 1 deal. It's just proof again how much stock there is in this relationship and how tenuous it is given everything that's going on with the coronavirus and the pandemic.
Absolutely. We are in a U.S. and China-centric world. Now, even President Trump can talk about having an option to decouple, but in practicality, that's almost impossible. And if it is, then you're going to have those market implications that you saw under the errant comments by Peter Navarro.
Do you think this issue is over? We'll get back to just trying to monitor the Phase 1 trade deal and move forward?
Well, you would hope. I think other officials will be very sensitive now. Again, they should have been before. Okay. Now, Farm Journal's AgriTalk tomorrow morning is going to interview Bob Lighthizer, U.S. Trade Rep. And we've, put together a series of questions, mainly Chip Flory has, to Lighthizer. And one of them is about what you just said. Where do we go forward? What year basis is this trade agreement on? Things like that. But I think, Chip's going to ask him to comment briefly on the Navarro comments.
Yeah, so as we look at the overall mood in Washington, there's still some talk about maybe an infrastructure bill. Do we see any more economic stimulus from this coronavirus? Do we expect that to happen?
99.9% you will see an economic stimulus package because there's bipartisan support that you need it. And that's even coming from the suggestion of the Federal Reserve, Chairman, Mr. Powell. The degree is how much and what factors. The Democrats already have a $3 trillion plus, proposal. It looks like the administration is going to support a package of around $2 trillion, and agriculture is going to be part of that, no doubt about it.
Hey, as we move toward November, and obviously this is an election year, there's a lot riding on for both parties, trying to work toward an outcome in November. What do you think will be the hot button issues for agriculture as we work forward?
Look to two states, because I think they're going to decide the presidency. Wisconsin, so that brings up dairy. So we're going to be watching Canada very carefully from a trade policy perspective if they follow through on their USMCA agreements in the dairy arena. And Arizona, because if Biden were to lose Michigan or Wisconsin, he could still win the presidency electoral college if he wins Arizona. So to me, that casts both Arizona and Wisconsin as two very, very important states. And that brings up agriculture, immigration policy, etc. On infrastructure, even though I personally don't see a final bill, being signed into law this year, there has been progress, and at least we know what the Democrats detailed their bill last night. And it's got a lot of money in it, including broadband for agriculture, specifications for rural communities. So if the Democrats were to win across the board in November 3rd elections, we know some of their goals in the infrastructure area now.
All right, well, it'll be something to watch as we move through the next few weeks. Always exciting. Thank you for joining us, giving us a little clarity there today, Jim. Sure appreciate it.
Anytime.
Now, the global economy continuing to see some stability as nations return from widespread quarantines and lockdowns. Service and manufacturing output showing signs of recovery, but growth remains weak. The Dow jumping triple digits in early trade Tuesday. The NASDAQ also continuing to climb, but markets pairing some of those gains here at midday. Let's bring in Jim McCormick with agmarket.net. Jim, as we look at the overall economy, we have seen some return to, I guess, normalcy, but it's slow.
It is definitely slow, and it's going to be slow. The fact of the matter is, if you look at the coronavirus death counts and just the case counts across, not just the U.S., but around the world, they still are ramping up. You're seeing some problems flare up in China right now, and they're trying to lock down certain parts of China. And that's going to take time. I mean, we tend to get locked in the United States of trying to get out of this coronavirus. But we are a world economy. A lot of our products, especially in agriculture, are sold overseas. And if they're not out spending money, they're not going to be buying our products. So it's going to take a little bit more of a rebound, I think, for people to feel comfortable, pretty much, Clinton, to go out and consume. I mean, especially agricultural base. Think about it. A lot of the demand for the high-end steaks are what? When people go out to eat.
Right.
Do you feel comfortable going out to eat yet? A lot of people don't at this point in time.
Yeah, that's right. I know it has been interesting to watch to see what people are willing to go and do right now. And while there are some people that are saying, hey, you know what, I'm going to go and take precautions, or I'm going to live my life, there are many that are still saying, you know what, at this point, I'm just not going to risk it. Hey, as we look at these markets, we were talking with Jim Wiesmeyer about Navarro's comments overnight and then the president jumping in. Has that lingered into today's trade on these markets?
I think it has, because I think it just shows you've got to be very, very cautious with the position size you're carrying. I mean, there was a lot of people who were feeling comfortable about the market, the way it kind of closed, the bean market specifically. The ratings dropped a little bit. You know, we've been seeing China has been an aggressive buyer of beans, and all of a sudden you get this headline story that the trade deal's gone, and within a few minutes we're down 15 cents last night, and the market panicked. And it just shows you how tenuous this trade agreement is with China. And I unfortunately think it's going to remain tenuous. I think it's probably only going to get worse as we get further into the election cycle.
As we talk about our commodity markets overall, you mentioned the crop condition for soybeans, corn actually improving a bit this last week. What's your overall opinion of where we sit with the condition of the corn, of the grain that's in the ground right now?
Right now, I got to say, overall, we're probably on the cusp of a pretty dang big crop. I've heard a lot of people murmur 180 plus corn yield. But the rains we've got across the Midwest, if that maintains itself, I think that is probably a legit target, and maybe even higher. Plain and simple. I mean, some of the drier parts of the country got rain in the last 24, 48 hours. Some of the new maps are giving more rain for those areas next week. And, that's the recipe. Heat and rain's the long-term forecast in some of these models. And heck, we know that's the recipe of a big crop, unfortunately, for price-wise.
So as we look out through the rest of this month, we've got a couple of big reports from USDA, quarterly grain stocks. We've got an acreage report. You expect any fireworks there?
I'm optimistic we are going to get some bullish news there. Early in the spring, the government said we're going to plant about 97 million acres of corn. And then a lot of people are thinking maybe it's closer to 96, 95. But then we've had some other analysts come out closer to 94 million acres. We've talked to a couple fertilizer people and a couple seed corn people that lean me to think that maybe we're probably going to be a little bit closer to 94, which I think would be a little bit of a surprise to the market. I think the real surprise would be the feed number. The quarterly grain stock, I think, is going to show two things. Last year's crop was smaller than a lot of what the government originally thought. I think that's part of it. The second thing, I think we fed a whole lot of corn during the pandemic meltdown. when the price, essentially remember, when ethanol facilities pretty much shut down almost half their production, if not more. So it brought all those distillers grains off the market. We had all this livestock to feed. Corn got really, really cheap. So what they all feed? They fed a lot more corn, we believe, than what they normally would. So we think that should be reflected on this report, which hopefully will give us a little bit of a bullish surprise going into the 4th of July weekend.
Jim, maybe that's your answer, but I've been asking folks, give me one thing you're optimistic about in the rest of 2020. What's on your radar?
I think the most thing I'm optimistic about is probably the feed demand. I do think it was understated. I think they're got some more upward revisions of that feed demand. So I think that is probably the most optimistic thing I can see out there right now. Exports, if I want a number 2 possible wild card, I think it could be exports for the corn market. China corn prices are been trading quite high, up near 4 or 5 year highs. Our prices are at the lower end of the band. China has sold, I believe it was roughly 16 million metric tons of corn in the last 3 state reserve auctions, or 4 reserve auctions. Historically, when they sell those corn out of reserves, Clinton, they sell maybe a third, a half. They're selling everything they offer, which tells me there is definitely a demand for corn in China. With our prices cheap, if we can keep this trade deal intact, I think there's a decent shot China may surprise the world and come in and buy some U.S. corn.
All right, Jim. Well, I appreciate the insights as always. Appreciate the optimism. Thank you for joining us on Farm Journal Live. And thank all of you for joining us here today. Of course, if you'd like to keep up with the latest happening around the agricultural industry, you can do that by going over to agweb.com or join us on any of our other platforms out there around the internet. And again, thank you all for watching Farm Journal Live. I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great afternoon. It started as social distancing, self-isolation, and caring for loved ones. A time for agriculture to be proud, to be essential. Now, it's changing. While states start to reopen and jobs resume, out here, the clouds are building. The path is uncertain. It's not the first time, it won't be the last. But we'll farm on. This soil is soaked in generations of sweat, of reinvention, of grit. Farm on is a calling. It's a mantra, a mindset. When the horizon dims and things turn dark, we'll find the light. We may be doing this for you, but we're also doing it for them. 2020, now's the time to farm on.